my internet friends, welcome back to another video. And I don't know if I told you this yet, but welcome to Quito, Ecuador. I can say this in Spanish. Bienvenidos a Quito, Ecuador. Woo! Okay. See, this is what 3 months of living in South America will get you. Tres palabras. Cinco palabras. Okay, anyway, today I am bringing you a late video. We are doing the mid-year freakout tag, in which it is neither the middle of the year nor am I freaking out because I set very few goals for myself this year. I didn't even realize that I would be coming back to BookTube this year, so I have already exceeded my own expectations and I'm riding high. I was tagged by Rosica the Midnight Reader, my best friend on BookTube. Rosica, one of these days we're gonna have to meet up again. Like, we've only ever met in person one time. But after watching everyone I follow on BookTube already completing the mid-year freakout tag, I really couldn't take it anymore and I wanted to do it myself. So I apologize that this is late. I do hope that it does not affect your enjoyment of this video. But let's get into the questions. Question 1, best book I've read so far. For this, I'm actually going to pick a book that I read back in 2022 when I was still on my BookTube hiatus. So I'm picking Perfect Little World by Kevin Wilson. My biggest red flag is that my favorite author is a cis heterosexual white man from the Midwest named Kevin Wilson. He just writes the oddest books. They're so weird. They have thoughts and ideas that I don't necessarily agree with, but I find fascinating to explore, and I find his mind in general very fascinating. Last year, I went on this kick where I read every single one of his books that came out, and I really fell in love with Perfect Little World. It's about 5 families who agreed to be a part of this 7-year experiment where they collaboratively raise their children as if they are all one big family unit. A little polyamorous-y in that sense. The main character is a teen mom who was impregnated by her teacher. Surprisingly, there's a lot of student-teacher relationships as a theme in Kevin Wilson's books. Maybe one day I will do a video analyzing that, but that's not today. You know, as she is a single mother and a teenager at that, with very little family support, this study is really like her best shot at having a better quality of life for herself and for her son, and so she takes part in this experiment, and the book follows the 7 years of that experiment. I really love this book. I think that it starts off very slow until the study really begins in earnest. It's not that interesting, but that's actually pretty normal for Kevin Wilson's books. It's very normal for the beginning to be kind of long and a little slow. I think that Perfect Little World grew on me. I was extremely surprised when I realized it was my favorite book. After I had finished all of his published works, I realized that the one I was thinking the most about was Perfect Little World. I felt like it had a lot of interesting ideas. I found myself wondering about if studies like this had been conducted before. I found myself wondering what might have been improved upon if this book, if in the fictional world of this book, the study was conducted again. I found the head researcher who was running this study to be an incredibly interesting character. Like, his backstory is just so weird. Like, Kevin just makes the oddest characters. I just felt like this book had aged like a fine wine for me. I felt like the more it percolated in my brain, the more I appreciated about it, the more curious I became about it, and hence it is my favorite book. I understand that Kevin Wilson is not for everyone, trust me. I'm not saying you all have to read this book, and I'm certainly not going to be upset if you don't like it. But I personally really enjoyed it. Question 2, best sequel. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't read any sequels this year, so I unfortunately don't have an answer to this question. So we're scooting along. Question 3, new release that you want to read. For this, I'm going with Earthlings by Sayaka Murata. This was a release that I had a strong desire to read, but I finished it. I loved it. It was truly bizarre, and a little gross at times, but I loved it. Basically, Earthlings is about a young girl who believes that she is an alien, and that's really all that I think that you need to know about the plot going into it. Just know that it is incredibly weird, disturbing, a little gross, but really fascinating and unlike anything I've ever read. Check the trigger warnings though, because there are some things in it that are a little not great to read. Question 4, most anticipated release for the second half of the year. I don't follow releases, I'm not gonna lie to you. I just wait until booktube tells me to read a book. But if I had to pick a book that I really was interested in reading during this last quarter of the year, I would say it is The Last Word by Taylor Adams. Rosica recommended this book in one of her most recent videos. She said that she took emotional damage while reading it, and that really sold it for me. And I also read another book by Taylor Adams that Rosica recommended called No Exit, and I really love that as well. So I have high expectations for The Last Word. No pressure. Question 5, biggest disappointment. I didn't like Nightbitch. I mean, I should clarify. I liked 75% of Nightbitch. I was fascinated by this premise of this stay-at-home mom turned werewolf ? I really liked the atmosphere of the book. I really liked the writing style. The ending kind of fell flat for me. I just found it a little boring. I felt like the last part of the book in general was not holding my attention. I just found the direction it was going in to be a little boring, and I didn't think that the ending really stuck the landing for me. I enjoyed 75% of the book. It's just that the ending was a disappointment. Question 6, biggest surprise. For this, I'm going with Me, Myself, They by Luna M. Ferguson. This is a memoir about Luna's experience of being non-binary. I just had no idea what to expect with this book, and I really loved it. I thought that Luna had a really interesting story. I thought that they showed incredible vulnerability in sharing the highs and lows of their life. And I also found their film career to be very interesting, and the unique challenges that they faced while creating films that fought for the visibility of other non-binary people. And I just really appreciated them sharing those very personal stories with us. Oh, hi, Editing J here. Just an FYI, if you're interested in reading Me, Myself, They, you might end up finding it under Luna's dead name. I think they must have changed their name legally around the same time the book was published, and for whatever reason, the publishers did not take Luna's dead name off of the cover, which is, I can only imagine, extremely frustrating for them. But yeah, just giving you a heads up, if you are confused by why there are two different names on the cover, that is why. Okay, say hi to Mona. Oh, look at Mona. Hi. Okay, bye. Question 7, favorite new author, and I'm gonna go with Gail Carson Levine. You know, infamous middle school fantasy writer, Gail Carson Levine. This YouTube channel is a Gail Carson Levine stan account. I've decreed it. Some background, Gail Carson Levine wrote a bunch of fantasy middle grade novels. The most well-known is probably Enchanted. Like the movie starring Anne Hathaway where she sings Somebody to Love, and it became one of my favorite songs of all time. Anyway, you know, I remember loving Enchanted as a kid, and I actually reread the book as an adult. It was intended to be one of my rereading childhood books videos. Enchanted absolutely exceeded all of my expectations. It was funny, it was whimsical, but it was also so nuanced. What really cemented Gail as my favorite new author is I read another book of hers, Fairest, which is set in the same universe as Enchanted, and I just went, you know what, Gail is a queen. I'm like, you know what? Gail is an angel sent from heaven above. I'll talk more about Fairest a little later as it comes up as the answer to one of the future questions in this tag. But I just think that, you know, she's such an incredible writer, and I just appreciate the nuance in important messages that she puts into her books without preaching it to its readers. Question 8, newest fictional crush. And for this, I'm gonna go with Elizabeth, the evil vampire from House of Hunger. I read House of Hunger for my July reading vlog, and I really enjoyed it. You know, I identify as heterosexual, but I don't know what to tell you. I have a thing for murderous women, you know? I like how scary they are. I like how society underestimates them, but they can still kill you. I don't know what to tell you. I have a type, and that's my type. Question 9, newest least favorite character. For this, it has to be Oliver from Five to Survive. I hate everything about him. I hate his stupid face, his stupid voice, his stupid ideas. Do not try to play the 10 Things I Hate About You poem. That is not what's happening here. I truly dislike him. He also high-key murdered someone, and I don't stan murderous men, only murderous hot women. This is kind of a 9B. To me, it is unclear if this was a question that is part of the official mid-year freakout tag list, or if this is just like some improv that Rosica made up on the fly, because I took these questions from her video. But 9B, who is my new favorite character, that has to be this is kind of like a light. Okay, so I thought about this, and I'm just gonna say perhaps recency bias is affecting my memory, but I'm gonna say the love interest from Fairest by Gail, Carson, Levine. I don't remember his name, and you could argue that actually the main character of Fairest, Asa, is my favorite character, but I don't know, I just found her love interest to be extremely endearing. Like, I don't need to know his name, I'm just happy that he makes Asa happy. Like, he's just such a dork. Like for instance, okay, like in Fairest, a lot of the characters are really good singers. Like, singing is a big part of their culture, and Asa has a beautiful voice. So at one point, she just kind of like sings like a little jingle at him, and he responds with his own jingle. I just really enjoyed that. I just found that extremely endearing. I like that yes and sort of energy, so I really like that about him, and I think he makes Asa happy, so that's the most important thing for me. Question 10, a book that made you cry. For this, I'm going with Wild by Cheryl Strayed. This is a book I read back in May when I was still in Colombia and starting this digital nomad traveling journey. This book was incredibly meaningful to me because it came to me at this precise moment when I needed it the most. And also, Cheryl Strayed is an incredible writer. She made me laugh, she made me sob ugly tears. I think that Cheryl is an incredible storyteller, and I also think that she has an incredible story in its own right. Ooh, that was punchy. I should do book reviews or something. Question 11, book that made you happy. I am so glad we're finally here. Let's talk about Fairest by Gail, Carson, Levine. So Fairest is a Snow White retelling. It follows the main character, Asa, who is an orphan. When she was a baby, she was abandoned at an inn and taken in by the family that lives there. Her family loves her dearly. However, the patrons at the inn and society at large is very unkind to Asa because she is just not conventionally attractive. And the book is about Asa's personal journey of self-love and also the overarching journey of her finding love. I love everything about this book. I found it extremely whimsical, extremely funny. I thought that the audiobook was an incredible experience. It had like a full cast. We had background music, we had whimsical transitions, we had singing. It was a whole production. I loved everything about it. Also, I just had to explain to you why this book is my favorite, and I don't care that we're spoiling it. It's a middle grade fantasy fairy tale retelling. You take a wild guess how it ends. So early in the book, Asa meets a gnome who is staying at the inn, and in this world, gnomes can tell the future. So she asks this gnome, hey, will I ever be pretty? And the gnome responds, I find all humans unattractive, so I actually don't know how to answer this question for you. First of all, perfect response, 10 out of 10. But he goes on to say, well, what I can tell you is that your hair is the most beautiful shade of autumn I've ever seen. And autumn is a color that only gnomes can see. The gnome also goes on to say that I can see your future. I can see that we will meet again. And when we do, you will be in danger and you will have very little autumn left in your hair. And you're like, what does that mean? I remember reading this excerpt like in the back of my copy of Ella Enchanted and wondering, God, what does this mean? And then I never asked my parents to buy me this book. I've been carrying this little nugget with me for, let's say like 15 years at minimum. This has been like over a decade. I remembered this and never had closure. But anyway, we fast forward. The whole plot of the book happens. Asa is a fugitive from the royal palace. It doesn't matter why. It doesn't matter why, just read the book. But to help her escape, she takes a potion that will make her conventionally attractive. And so when she meets up with this gnome, his vision has come true. He says, I was right, we have met again, you are in danger, and you have very little autumn left in your hair. And it is so amazing because at this very moment, Asa looks conventionally attractive. She actually has gotten her wish from the very beginning of the book, but in the process of pursuing this wish, she lost the thing that made her truly beautiful and truly herself. And isn't that so beautiful? This is the moment when it went from 5 stars to 6 stars for me. Gail has done this with Ella Enchanted as well. She has managed to exceed my expectations. I'm truly tempted to do a whole reread of Gail Carson Levine. I can't help it. But yeah, that was a book that made me incredibly happy. I was beaming with delight. I would squeal in surprise. I laughed. I raged. I gave it 6 out of 5 stars. Question 12, the most beautiful book you've acquired. I don't really have a lot of free space for beautiful books, but I can show you 2 journals that I bought before leaving Seattle. Hold on. Okay, I bought these in a bookstore in Seattle. The intent was that these would be like note-taking, like random story inspiration, but I haven't used them yet. I have 2.5 journals that still need to be filled, but you know, I still like them. Question 13, what book do you have to read by the end of the year? Okay, so like quick embarrassing preview into kind of like long-term video plans. I'm rereading a book that was probably a cornerstone of my childhood. No, it was not Harry Potter. No, it was not The Hunger Games. No, it was not Divergent. It was called Gone by Michael Grant. It was my favorite. And I have been wanting to do an unhinged recap of the Gone series since I first started book 2. And I really need to finish this book before it disappears from my Libby app because I'm so close to finishing it. And so will begin the daunting process of filming and editing truly my most unhinged video. Oh, hello, it's Editing Jay back again for another insert. Past Jay Did you not recall the whole 5-part video series that you did with your friend Chelsea when you first started this channel? I mean, like, I know what Past J was thinking because I am her, and it wasn't that long ago that I filmed that video. At the time that I was filming that segment, I was a little self-conscious because that whole like 5-part Gone series was like one of the first big videos that I did on my channel, and I mean there are a lot of problems with it, particularly with the audio and video production. Like, it's filmed on like an old Panasonic that I got in like 2016, no, 2013. And the audio is very, very problematic in parts. But I don't know. I've been rewatching that series recently because like I finished the book Gone, and I wanted to look back on some of the things that me and Chelsea had said during our discussions about it. And maybe it's my nostalgia bias, but I actually really like it. I find it kind of charming. Chelsea, if you're watching this, hi. I miss you. I hope you're doing well wherever in the world you are. But yeah, this is just kind of like some shameless self-promotion for some of my older videos. Okay, back to Past J. And finally, question 14, content creators that you've been loving recently. So Rosica stole all my answers. Which is so irritating, but she also mentioned me, which is kind of cute. So content creators I've been loving are, of course, Rosica, my best friend on BookTube. I think she's super funny. I also think that that's probably because we have the same sense of humor. She also mentioned Kiki's Bookish Service, which is truly the most aesthetic BookTube content you can find, and also Alex Black Books, who I've been really enjoying recently. Additionally, to give some answers that Rosica did not, I have been really loving Amy's Rambles, who I rediscovered recently. I find her to be super funny, and I love when she gets either super excited or super frustrated with a book. She had a video called Ice Planet Barbarians that, like, truly I don't care about the plot of that book, but I loved watching her give her genuine reactions to the story. I would also say I've been really loving Book Buds. This channel is a joint venture between Joe and Mary, who are 3-year book buds on YouTube. I just find them super adorable. I just think they're super funny. They do skits at the beginning of every video and include outtakes from those skits at the end of every video. It's so reminiscent of old YouTube that I find it charming. Yeah, and I think that their dynamic is infectious. They always put a smile on my face. And finally, I'm gonna say All D Books. I've been really loving her travel content, her aesthetic vlogs. She's just someone I find extremely soothing, and I really like that. So that is the end of the video. This has been lovely catching up with you. I missed you, and I will see you in the next video. All right, see you.